I don't want to stand in the way of human progress at all. One of my fears is that in pursuit of living longer, are we missing something about the beauty and the essence of what life really is? Life is finite. The fact that it's finite is what makes it so beautiful.
Yeah.
If we could live to 200,
would
we have even more of these regrets because we'd keep taking life for granted?
You know what? You're talking my language, because to tell you the truth, to coin a phrase, all this stuff about longevity bores me to death. I just don't care. What really matters is, what does this moment bring us, or what can we bring to this moment? Let the future take care of itself. Like Jesus says, take no thought for tomorrow. And I really think that this longevity movement is a sign of deep social anxiety, when especially you get these rich people in California with their cryo technology of freezing the body, hoping that 100 years from now they'll be able to unfrozen and there'll be treatments for the. It bores me. What really matters is, for me, is what makes life meaningful and active and engaged in the present moment. And it's interesting, in English, we talk about growing older. Now, that's a very telling phrase, because in significant ways, when we get older, we shrink. Like our bodies, our skin starts to sag, our muscles are no longer as, supple and strong as they used to be. So what does it mean to grow older? We could just say, like you said earlier, get older, which is just a chronological progression. But growing older implies that this growth is actually possible. So in what sense can we actually grow? And I think actually we can actually grow into the present moment and growing in our appreciation for life and what matters, and knowing what doesn't matter, and growing in wisdom. Indigenous cultures, they don't talk about elderly, they talk about elders.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I think there's a natural reverence for age that senior cultures would respect, and modern society kind of dismisses. Now, do I wish that my hair was blacker and more curly the way it used to be? Yeah, I do. And it wasn't gray, and my hair wasn't thinning at the top, and I sure I wish that. But at the same time, I would not want to be as unconscious as I was when my hair was blacker and curlier.
Yeah, this is such an interesting point. I've spoken to several menopause experts on this show over the past years. And I remember when doing some research on one of the conversations, I came across research showing that in cultures where women are revered as they get older, their wisdom is respected, they're seen as really important parts of the community.
Right.
Those cultures report less menopausal symptoms.
Isn't that interesting?
Just so I'm not misinterpreted, I want to be really clear. I'm not saying that means that all menopausal symptoms would go away if that was the case. I just find it interesting that when the cultural view of growing old is different, we perceive ourselves as having, I don't know, a different symptom profile, if I can put it like that.
And the degree of suffering is different. So that maybe they have symptoms or maybe they have certain features, but the suffering is not experienced the same way. Please
expand on that, because I think some people will go, what do you mean? If you're either getting symptoms or you're not getting symptoms, explain what you mean by perception of, the suffering, essentially.
Well, I was talking to somebody else about this today. So as you and I know, in Western medicine, we kind of medicalize everything. And so we talk about premenstrual syndrome. Now, which PMS, it's a syndrome, it's a medical entity. What is it really? Is that under the impact of hormonal changes, women get more sensitized. So they might have more physical pain, and more upset, but we could see that as pathological, or we could actually say that it's a time of truth-telling, that the hormones do sensitize them to things that are not functioning in their lives, which the rest of the time they're acculturated to acquiesce with and to put up with.
Yeah.
But the menstrual ferment in their bodies makes it less tolerable. So instead of seeing it as a pathology, we could see it as a time of insight. And what if they actually listen to their bodies and listen to what their body's saying no to, that the rest of the month they kind of suppress? Then that could be seen as a time of wisdom rather than a time of suffering. So the physical things are there, but it doesn't have to be experienced as suffering.
No.
It could be experienced as a time of truth-telling. And actually, a lot of women have told me that. Once they become aware of that, their relationship to menstruation is totally different. And I think that's what you're saying about menopause as well.
Yeah. This kind of speaks to the second regret, which is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I agree that for many women,
yeah,
and I can think of so many patients like this, their hormonal symptoms were actually showing them that the way you're currently living is not in harmony with your body.
Exactly.
Now, of course, sometimes people struggle to make change. It's hard to make change. Maybe their life is mega stressful, and at that moment, they can't change it for whatever reason. And I empathize with that. I understand.
Yeah.
But for some people who are able to, sometimes it's one of the best things that has happened to them.
Yeah. Now, this thing of I wish I hadn't worked so hard, that's an interesting one, because I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And what do I mean by that? Speaking for myself, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I became a physician for some really good reasons. One of them was I genuinely wanted to help suffering humanity. And I thought medicine is a perfect pathway through which I could help people. That's genuine, and I meant it. I also chose a profession where I was fairly confident of making a decent living so I could support a life for myself and my family. That's legitimate. But those reasons don't make you work too hard. They make you work hard, but they don't make you work too hard. What makes you work too hard, and that's what these people are saying, is you're driven by something that you're not even aware of. And what I wasn't aware of when I went to medical school and when I was a physician for decades is how driven I was to justify my existence in the world and to prove that I was important and worthwhile and so on. And that had to do with the loss of that confidence owing to early childhood trauma. And so it's not a question, nobody says, I wish I hadn't worked hard. To achieve something in life, you have to work hard. They're saying, I wish I hadn't worked too hard. And that too part, the TOO part, comes from being driven by unconscious needs to validate your existence, where why should any human being have to validate their existence? You know? And so that's what they're saying. And when you're driven to work too hard, you actually ignore what matters. And what matters is what you were telling me last night about how much it matters for you to spend time with your family. So every summer, you take a bunch of weeks away from your podcast and you just spend time enjoying your kids and your wife and your family. And I didn't do that. For me, it was very hard to even take holidays. I always felt I had to keep working. If somebody was pregnant, oh my God, what if I would miss their delivery? Like the baby couldn't enter the world without me, you know? So that drivenness is what makes people work too hard. And so it's not a matter of working hard, it's a matter of working too hard. And where does that come from? Again, that comes from childhood trauma.